The conference room had glass walls, like it wanted the whole world to watch me crack. Outside, the office park sat in a rich suburb north of New York City. Clean lawns, silent fountains, perfect cars. Inside, the air was cold and bright. My hands shook so hard the pen felt heavy. "Just sign," Graham's lawyer said gently, like he was offering me water instead of ending my life. Graham sat across from me in a dark suit. He didn't look sad. He didn't look angry. He looked like he was approving a shipment order from one of his factories. In the corner, his mother sat with a calm, satisfied smile. Celeste's hair was perfect. Her pearls looked like armor. She didn't say much. She didn't have to. Page after page, marriage dissolved, assets separated, silence required. Then the lawyer slid the last stack forward. "NDA, non-disparagement, full compliance," he said. My throat burned. I signed anyway, because I had trained myself for years to be agreeable, to not cause scenes, to keep the peace. I handed the pen back. That was when the lawyer slid my phone across the table and said, "You'll leave it here." My heart stopped. "What?" Graham didn't speak. He just nodded once, and I understood. This wasn't a divorce. This was a disappearance. I held my phone like it was the last piece of me that still existed. "No," I whispered, "that wasn't." "It's in the compliance protocol," the lawyer said, calm as a machine. "A replacement device will be provided after relocation." Relocation. The word made my stomach twist. I looked at Graham. I waited for him to act like my husband, for him to say, "Stop," for him to show even 1 ounce of love. He didn't. He stared at the table and tapped his finger once, like he was counting down seconds. Celeste tilted her head. "Don't be dramatic," she said softly. "It's a fair deal. $500,000 for your silence." My fingers went numb. I placed the phone on the table as if it might explode. The lawyer picked it up right away, like he was collecting evidence. 2 men appeared near the door. Not security in uniform, but close enough to make my skin crawl. They walked me through the lobby, past a receptionist who didn't look up. Outside, the air felt sharp. I took 3 steps toward my car, and my watch buzzed. Bank alert. $500,000 deposit received. Another buzz followed. New email created in your name. My chest tightened. Then a subject line flashed on the screen. Disappearance compliance, confirmed. I stared until my eyes blurred, because I finally understood. They had planned this like a business deal. The rental looked like a hotel pretending to be a home. White walls, gray couch, a bowl of fake lemons on the counter. Nothing smelled like me. Nothing felt real. A binder sat on the island, waiting like a trap. Quiet separation protocol. No contact with Graham, no contact with family, no friends, no posting, no explanations. Even the word explanations was in quotes, like my truth was a joke. Every rule had a penalty. Every penalty had a price. The bold line at the bottom made my stomach drop. Violation triggers repayment plus damages. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling until the dark turned grainy and thick. 2 days later, my burner phone buzzed. I hadn't given that number to anyone except the attorney's office, so my hands went cold when I read the message. It was from my old neighbor, Kim. "Why did your husband tell everyone you left abruptly, like you ran off?" I reread it 3 times. Left abruptly, ran off. My lips parted in shock. They weren't just erasing me, they were rewriting me. I looked around the rental, at the clean counters, the blank walls, the silent air. Then I heard something outside the door. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Stopping right in front of my unit. I used to believe quiet meant safe. In Graham's world, quiet wives were rewarded. Quiet wives got invited to charity events. Quiet wives got diamonds and polite smiles. Quiet wives didn't make trouble, so I stayed quiet. Flashbacks hit me like flickering lights. Celeste at holiday dinners, looking me up and down. "Sweet girl," she'd say, but not quite made for our level. Graham would squeeze my knee under the table, not comfort. A warning. Back in the present, I tried to blend into my new life. I ordered groceries online. I kept curtains closed. I walked my trash out quickly, like I was afraid of the air. Then I noticed something small, my mailbox. The door wasn't fully closed. I had not checked it. I stared at it for a long time, my heartbeat loud in my ears. Then I opened it. 2 envelopes and an ad flyer sat inside, but they weren't stacked neatly. They looked shifted, like someone had slid them out and slid them back in. I carried them inside with shaking hands. I flipped one envelope over. My name was written on it, but the handwriting was wrong. Too sharp, too stiff. Like someone wanted to prove they could reach me anytime. I whispered, "Someone knows where I am." Then I heard a soft click outside, like a phone camera focusing, and I realized the quiet wasn't safety anymore. It was a cage. The clinic smelled like clean soap and hand sanitizer. I sat on the paper-covered table while the nurse typed. Her face was kind. Her voice was gentle. "Well," she said, turning the screen slightly, "congratulations, you're pregnant." The word should have felt like joy. Instead, my chest tightened like a fist had closed around my ribs. Pregnant. I smiled because my face forgot how to do anything else. "Okay," I whispered, like I was agreeing to bad news. The nurse handed me pamphlets. She offered a follow-up appointment. I nodded like a robot. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and stared at my hands on the steering wheel. My ring was gone. My marriage was gone. But inside me was proof that something still lived. Something the contract didn't predict. Then my burner phone buzzed. An email appeared from Graham's lawyer, as if he'd been watching the clinic clock. Reminder: any contact violates the agreement and triggers repayment plus penalties. My heart slammed, not because I wanted to contact him, because I realized they expected me to stay silent forever. My stomach turned. I looked at the steering wheel, then at my belly. My pregnancy wasn't just personal news. It was a threat to their plan. And powerful people hated surprises. I sat on the floor of my rental, laptop open, bank app glowing. My fingers shook as I tapped the deposit details. I expected to see Graham's name, or his manufacturing company. Instead, I saw sender, Marilyn Consulting LLC. I had never heard of it. I searched online. Nothing. No website. No office. Just a filing record. My stomach dropped like a stone. I kept digging. It felt like pulling a thread from fabric. One thread became 10. After an hour, I found the connection. Marilyn Consulting was tied to a chain of shell accounts. Those accounts fed into something familiar. Graham's political foundation. The one he loved showing off in interviews. The one with photos of him smiling beside community leaders, talking about values and integrity. The Clearbridge Civic Initiative. It was supposed to help people, not pay wives to disappear. My breath turned shallow. I whispered, "This wasn't a divorce." I could hear Celeste's voice in my memory. "$500,000 for your silence." This was a cover-up. And my pregnancy? It wasn't part of their plan. It was an accident, a problem, a living, growing risk. My fear changed shape. They didn't just want me quiet. They wanted me gone. And now I finally understood why the paperwork felt like a death sentence. The knot came at 8:12 a.m. 3 sharp taps. My body froze so fast my coffee spilled on my sleeve. I peeked through the peephole. A police officer stood outside with a clipboard. Behind him was a woman in a beige coat holding a folder. I opened the door only a crack. "Tessa Kaur?" the officer asked. "Yes," I said, voice tight. "Ma'am, we're here for a wellness check." My mouth went dry. "Why?" The woman stepped forward. Someone expressed concern, isolation, emotional instability, risk factors. She spoke like she was reading lines. The officer glanced at his notes. "They said you've been having episodes." "Who said that?" I asked. He hesitated, then said, "A family member." I already knew. Still, hearing it made my skin crawl. "Your husband," the officer confirmed. My heart pounded. Graham wasn't sending love. He was sending the system. The woman asked, "Are you taking medication? Feeling unsafe?" I forced my voice steady. "I'm fine." The officer didn't move. "We may need to step inside," he said. For 1 second, I imagined them pushing past me. Imagined my life becoming a file number. Then I remembered my job. My real job. The one Graham never cared about. I said calmly, "If you enter, I want your names and badge numbers, and I want the report number for the call." The officer blinked, surprised. The woman's smile slipped, and I realized they expected fear. They didn't expect procedure. They left after 15 minutes, but the air stayed heavy, like the building remembered the threat. That evening I drove to a pharmacy in town. I wore a hat and plain glasses. I felt silly, but my instincts screamed. A woman stood too close behind me in line. She looked expensive, perfect coat, smooth hair, small gold earrings. When I stepped forward, she stepped forward too. At the counter, I gave my name quietly. The pharmacist repeated it out loud. The woman behind me tilted her head, listening. The pharmacist asked for my ID. I handed it over, and I saw it. Her phone angled toward me, not obvious, not rude, but enough. A quick click, a photo of my license, my name, my address. My hands went cold. I spun toward her. She smiled softly like we were friends, then walked out without hurrying. Outside, through the window, I watched her slide into a black SUV. She sat there for a moment before starting the engine like she was waiting for instructions. My burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message: stay cooperative. I stared at the words until my eyes burned. Then I looked at the SUV pulling away. This wasn't random. This was organized. And it meant one thing. They weren't just tracking me. They were building a case. I had always been the wife people underestimated. Graham never cared what I did for work. As long as dinners were smooth, events were polite, and I never embarrassed him. But my job wasn't small. I worked in contract compliance. I read documents for lies. I found missing clauses. I tracked money trails hidden under consulting fees and settlements. People thought I filed papers. What I really did was catch the story underneath the story. That night, I spread my divorce agreement across the coffee table and reread it like it was a crime scene. At first, it looked airtight, fancy language, strong threats. But when I slowed down, I saw it. A clause referenced a jurisdiction that didn't exist. A penalty section listed in Exhibit D that wasn't attached. The date formatting changed halfway through like someone copied and pasted too fast. Then I found the biggest hole. The NDA claimed I signed freely and without coercion. But the disappearance condition, no contact, no friends, no explanations, was coercion. The phone confiscation was coercion. The wellness checks were pressure. My pulse steadied, not because I felt safe, but because I felt awake. This agreement was rushed, I whispered. And rushed paperwork meant mistakes. Mistakes meant weakness, and weakness was something I could use. I built my own protocol, a quiet one, a dangerous one. I bought a notebook and wrote case log on the first page. I listed dates and times: wellness check, 8:12 a.m., pharmacy photo, 6:44 p.m., unknown text, 6:50 p.m. I made folders on my laptop: bank trail, NDA errors, harassment foundation links. Then I emailed Graham's lawyer, calm and polite. Subject: document request. Hello, please provide full copies of all executed agreements, attachments, and exhibits related to my divorce settlement. Thank you. No emotion, no accusations, just procedure. 3 hours later, his reply came. We advise you to cease unnecessary inquiries. You are being monitored for compliance. Monitored. I stared at that word like it was a fingerprint. Then I noticed the footer line in gray. Sent on behalf of Merrill Lane Consulting LLC, the shell company again. So the lawyer wasn't just a lawyer. He was part of the cover-up. And now he had confirmed something important. They were watching me. Which meant they were afraid of what I might do. That was the first time my fear started turning into something else. Something sharper. A package arrived in plain brown cardboard. No return address. Just my name printed neatly, like someone wanted to prove they could reach me anytime. I stared at it before opening it. Then I cut the tape. Inside was a folder, my termination packet, from Graham's manufacturing company. It was dated weeks before my divorce. Weeks. My stomach churned as I flipped through it. Role concluded. Access revoked. Security clearance removed. Then I found the real reason. A checklist. Reputation risk review. Spouse stability concerns. Potential public exposure. Discretion plan in place. My name was listed under risk source. I felt dizzy. I had been labeled like a defect, like broken equipment. At the bottom was a signature, not mine, not Graham's, Celeste's. My mouth went dry. This wasn't only Graham's plan. It was family strategy. They had planned to remove me before I even understood I was being removed. And my pregnancy made it worse for them, not better. Because a baby meant connection, a baby meant history, a baby meant questions no NDA could erase forever. I sat down hard, folder in my lap, and I knew the truth. They had already built a file on me. Now they were trying to make it official. I waited until night, then went into Manhattan. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't bring my notebook. I brought only the agreement, my fear, and my pregnancy. The law office was small but sharp, with clean lines and no fake smiles. The lawyer who met me had steady eyes like she had seen every kind of betrayal. "I'm Sloan Rivera," she said. "Tell me what's happening." I slid the agreement across her desk. She read without speaking. Her jaw tightened once. Then I told her everything: the disappearance condition, the shell payment, the wellness checks, the pharmacy photo, the pregnancy. When I finished, she leaned back. "This is not a normal divorce," she said. I swallowed. "Can the agreement be destroyed?" "If coercion exists, yes, If fraud exists, yes, Sloan said. If they used intimidation and misrepresentation, yes. I exhaled, shaking. She tapped the page. This document is poison for them, Tessa. Then she looked at my belly. And pregnancy changes everything, she added, because child-related rights can't be signed away like this, and they can't legally buy silence to cover wrongdoing. My heart pounded. Sloane's voice dropped lower. They paid you to vanish, but if you don't, what do they lose? I whispered, everything, and she nodded like we both understood the same war had already begun. 2 days later, a courier knocked on my door. Not a delivery service. A man in a suit holding a glossy envelope like it was a prize. I signed with shaking hands. Inside was a letter. No greeting, no kindness. Final offer. More money than before. A relocation package, a condo, security, full medical coverage, and one line that made my vision blur. You must terminate the pregnancy. I covered my mouth to stop the sound rising in my throat. My baby was not a mistake, not a defect, not a problem to erase. The letter continued. After medical completion, you will be escorted to your relocation site for permanent privacy. Permanent privacy. A pretty way to say prison. At the bottom was Graham's signature in real ink, like he was signing off a purchase. Like he was buying my silence and my body and my future. My hands shook so badly the paper rattled. Then my burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. We can do this the easy way. I stared at the screen. I didn't cry. I stood up slowly, like something inside me had finally clicked into place. I whispered into the empty apartment. You thought I was quiet because I was weak. I set the letter on the counter beside my case log. Then I said the truth out loud for the first time. I'm going to out-document you. I didn't answer the offer. I didn't threaten. I didn't beg. Instead, I set a trap. I emailed Graham's lawyer one innocent question, the kind compliance workers ask every day. Subject: Payment classification clarification. Hello. For my records, can you confirm whether the settlement payment was categorized as personal divorce settlement funds or as a consulting-related disbursement? Thank you. It looked harmless, boring, safe. But if he answered the wrong way, he would prove fraud on paper. His reply came fast. The settlement was routed as a consulting disbursement under Merrill Consulting LLC per standard compliance practice. My hands went cold. He had admitted it. He had confirmed the shell company was part of the plan. I forwarded the email to Sloan immediately. Then I did something else. I requested the foundation's public filings, donor lists, and board reports. Everything that could show how money moved. At midnight, I found it. A vendor ledger buried in a PDF attachment. Tiny print, long list, and there was a name that made my stomach flip. My name. Not as a spouse, as a risk settlement vendor. Like I was a problem they paid off. I sat in the dark holding my breath because now it was clear. They weren't hiding a divorce. They were hiding a scandal. And my pregnancy was the loose thread that could unravel the whole thing. The next morning, the hunting changed from soft to sharp. A second wellness check came, but this time it wasn't just an officer and a clipboard. 2 officials arrived. One introduced himself as Family Services. The other stood behind him, silent, eyes scanning my doorway like she was looking for proof. Someone reported concerns, the man said. Living conditions, emotional stability, potential risk to a child. A child? I repeated, my voice tight. I'm not due for months, he smiled politely. We plan ahead. That's when I understood. They weren't only hunting me, they were preparing to take my baby. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I asked, can I see the report number and the name attached to the call? The man hesitated. The silent woman's eyes flicked to his folder. He gave me a number but not a name. I wrote it down. After they left, I sat on the floor and pressed my palm to my belly. I wasn't scared of motherhood. I was scared of how fast powerful people could turn lies into paperwork. That night, I called Sloan and said, they're building a custody file before the baby is even here. Sloan's voice was steady. Then we treat this like war, she said. A clean one. A documented one. My phone buzzed as we spoke. Blocked number. A woman's voice whispered, be reasonable, Tessa. Then she added, don't make this ugly. I stopped sleeping. I started moving. I switched rentals legally, using my own money and my own name, because hiding in illegal shadows was what they wanted me to do. I needed to be traceable the right way, so their accusations couldn't stick. I requested my medical records in full. I asked the clinic to flag unauthorized inquiries. The nurse hesitated, eyes shifting. "We already had a call," she whispered. "From who?" I asked. "A man who said he was your husband," she said. "He wanted your appointment notes." My stomach turned. Graham hadn't spoken to me like a person in weeks, but he was trying to access my body like a file. I asked the clinic to document the call, the number, and the exact request. Then I did something else. I started recording everything. Not secretly in places where it wasn't allowed. Not reckless. I recorded my own calls. I kept copies of every letter, every email, every visit notice. And I began a timeline. Divorce signing day, week 0. Pregnancy confirmation, week 2. Wellness checks, week 2-3. Final offer letter, week 3. Sloan said, patterns matter, so I hunted patterns. That night, I noticed the same thing twice. A black SUV parking outside my building. No one got out. It stayed for exactly 1 hour. Then my phone rang from a blocked number again. This time, the voice said, "If you want a peaceful life, you will follow instructions." And then it hung up. The next escalation came with a smile. I was in a grocery store, pushing a cart slowly, trying to breathe like a normal person. Rich suburb stores were calm, almost too calm. Soft music, perfect fruit stacks, polite strangers. Then I saw her. Celeste. She walked toward me like she owned the aisle. Perfect hair, clean nails, calm eyes, like this was a social visit. She stopped beside my cart and looked at me without blinking. "You look tired," she said softly. "You should take care of yourself." I didn't answer. She leaned closer. "You're not keeping anything that carries our name." My skin went cold. Then she slipped something into my reusable bag like it was an accident. A business card. Maternal services consultant. I pulled it out slowly. It wasn't a doctor. It wasn't a counselor. It was a private family planning fixer, the kind rich people used when they wanted problems erased quietly. Celeste's voice stayed gentle. "This can all be handled with dignity," she said. "Don't force us to protect our future." Our future. Not mine. Not the baby's. Theirs. I looked at her and finally spoke, voice low and steady. "You came to a grocery store to threaten a pregnant woman," I said. "Do you hear yourself?" Her smile didn't change. "I came to give you options." Then she walked away like she had just offered me a coupon. I stood frozen, breathing shallow. And I realized Celeste wasn't worried about me breaking the NDA. She was worried about me keeping the baby. I met Sloan in a Manhattan office again, this time with a binder so thick it barely fit in my bag. I laid it on her desk. Case log. Emails, letters, wellness check numbers, pharmacy incident notes, clinic call documentation, vendor ledger screenshots, payment routing confirmations. Sloan flipped through once, then stopped. Her face went still. "This isn't divorce law anymore," she said quietly. "This is fraud, intimidation, and coercion." My mouth went dry. "What happens next?" "We take control of the timeline," she said. "Not them." She explained it in plain words, so nothing felt confusing or dramatic. 1. We file an injunction to stop harassment. 2. We notify the clinic and hospital systems to block unauthorized access. 3. We prepare evidence packets for regulators, because the money trail involves a foundation and shell company routing. I stared at her. "Regulators?" "Yes," she said. "If the foundation used donor-connected accounts for personal cover-ups, that's not a private family matter." My hands shook, but my voice stayed calm. "Will it destroy them?" Sloan didn't promise. She didn't brag. She just said, "It can." Then she looked me in the eye. "But you have to stay clean. No social media, no gossip, no threats." I nodded. "I want real consequences," I whispered. "Not drama." Sloan pushed a form toward me. "Then we file," she said. As I reached for the pen, my phone buzzed. Unknown caller. This time the screen showed a name, Graham. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Graham hadn't called once since the conference room. Not to check if I was alive, not to ask if I was safe, not to speak like a human being. He only called now because the machine had started moving. I answered on speaker with Sloan watching me. "Hello?" I said, voice steady. Graham exhaled like he was annoyed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. It wasn't anger, it was calm control, like he was negotiating a contract. "I'm pregnant," I said. A pause. Then he said, "That's unfortunate." My stomach turned. He continued, "You have options. The offer still stands. You take care of it, you disappear, and you keep the money." "I'm not terminating my pregnancy," I said. His voice dropped colder. "Then you're choosing conflict." "No," I said. "You chose conflict when you paid me to vanish." He gave a short laugh. You're emotional. Sloan lifted a finger, reminding me. Document everything. I said softly, why did the money come from Marilyn Consulting tied to your foundation? Silence. Then Graham said, you don't understand how things work. I understand contracts, I said. And I understand fraud. His tone sharpened slightly. If you push this, you will lose everything quietly. Then he said the sentence that snapped something inside me. You were never meant to be permanent. I looked at Sloan. I hit record. After that call, I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I felt clear. I wrote down every sentence Graham said, word for word, timestamp, date, call duration. Sloan drafted letters fast, cease and desist notices, clinic privacy demands, and formal warnings against further harassment. Then we built the bigger strike. Not public. Not loud. Real consequences. We prepared evidence packets for the State Charity Bureau because the foundation funds were not supposed to be used for private hush agreements. We prepared a complaint for the State Attorney General Unit that monitored nonprofit misuse. We prepared a report for corporate compliance at Graham's manufacturing company because if company-connected people routed money through shell vendors, the business was exposed. And we prepared court filings to protect me and the baby from intimidation. That night, I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car in a quiet parking lot and stared at the city lights far off. I was still the same person, quiet, careful, polite, but quiet didn't mean weak. Quiet meant I could move without warning. My phone buzzed again. Blocked number. A woman's voice, calm and familiar. Celeste's. Last chance, she said softly. You don't want to be the reason Graham loses everything. I swallowed. You should have thought of that before you hunted a pregnant woman. Then I hung up, and for the first time I felt powerful. The next morning, we filed. Sloan moved like a machine, and I matched her pace. We sent the court papers first because courts didn't care about reputation. They cared about facts. We sent regulator packets next because regulators didn't care about tears. They cared about money trails. We sent the corporate compliance report last because companies cared about risk, and this was pure risk. Everything was clean, organized, timed, backed by copies, no drama, just proof. Then something surprising happened. A notice popped into my email from a foundation address. It wasn't an apology, it was a warning. Please cease communications regarding foundation matters. Your inquiries are unauthorized. Unauthorized. I stared at the word and laughed once, short and bitter. They used foundation money to silence me, but my questions were unauthorized. Sloan leaned over my shoulder. That's fear, she said. They're panicking. That afternoon, my bank app updated. A hold appeared on one of the foundation-linked accounts, an internal freeze. Then another message landed, an internal inquiry notice sent to multiple board members. And then, like the world finally caught up to the truth, a journalist's email hit my inbox. We have questions regarding funds routed through Marilyn Consulting. Please comment. My blood ran cold, not because I wanted headlines, because I knew what headlines meant. It meant Graham's people would stop asking politely. That night, someone knocked on my door. Not an officer, not a courier. The knock was hard, angry, reckless. I didn't open it. I looked through the peephole. Celeste stood there, face red, hair still perfect, but eyes wild. She wasn't smiling now. She pounded again. Open the door, she snapped. You can't do this. I kept my voice calm through the door. Leave. You're ruining him, she yelled. After everything he gave you, I almost laughed. Everything he gave me, a contract, a cage, a threat. Celeste lowered her voice, trying to sound sweet again. We can still fix this, she said. We can make you comfortable. Comfortable. Like I was furniture. I'm not for sale, I said. Her breath hitched. You think you're smart, she hissed, but you don't understand what you started. I understand exactly, I said. You hunted me, you tracked me, you tried to erase me. She leaned closer to the peephole, like she wanted me to feel her rage through the door. You will lose, she whispered. Then she said something colder than any shout. You won't leave this suburb with your dignity intact. My hand stayed steady. I clicked my phone and began recording audio, and I said softly, keep talking. The next day, everything cracked. The foundation board scheduled an emergency meeting. Donors started asking questions. A local paper requested comment. Then a bigger outlet emailed again. Graham's manufacturing company issued an internal notice. Investigation opened regarding vendor routing and reputational risk exposure. I watched the emails stack up like falling dominoes. By noon, the foundation's accounts were frozen pending review. By evening, a compliance officer from Graham's company requested documents, formal, written, official. Sloane looked at me. "This is the machine," she said. "It doesn't stop once it starts." I should have felt joy. Instead, I felt tired, because winning didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like holding your breath for weeks and finally exhaling. Then my burner phone buzzed. A new message from Graham's lawyer. "Cease all actions immediately. You are in violation. Return funds within 24 hours. Sloane smiled for the first time in days. "That's a bluff," she said, "and it's sloppy." I stared. "Why sloppy?" "Because they're threatening repayment while an investigation is active," she said. "They're admitting the money exists as leverage." My phone rang. Graham again. I didn't answer. A second later, a text popped up. "You think regulators will protect you? They won't. You're alone." I pressed my palm to my belly. Then I typed one message back, short and calm. "I'm not alone. I have evidence." Court day came fast. The hallway smelled like old paper and coffee. People of all kinds sat on benches, tired parents, anxious workers, quiet lawyers. Graham walked in with his attorney team like a parade. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect face. Celeste walked behind him, chin raised. They expected me to look small. I wore a simple dress, clean hair, no jewelry. I looked calm. I held my folder like it was part of my body. The judge entered, and the room stood. When the hearing started, Graham's lawyer spoke first. He called me unstable. He said I ran off. He said I was confused. I didn't react. Sloane stood and said, "We have documentation." She submitted the wellness check logs, the pharmacy incident note, the clinic call record, the final offer letter demanding termination, the shell company routing confirmation email, the foundation vendor ledger showing my name. The judge's expression changed slowly. Then the judge looked at Graham's lawyer and asked, "Why was a nonprofit-linked vendor used for a divorce settlement?" The lawyer stammered. Graham's jaw tightened. Sloane then played the recording of Graham's call. "You were never meant to be permanent." The courtroom went silent. The judge turned to Graham. "Is that your voice?" Graham didn't answer fast enough. And in that pause, the judge saw the truth. The ruling didn't come with drama. It came with clarity. The judge said the NDA was unenforceable due to coercion indicators, intimidation patterns, and misrepresentation. The judge issued protective orders against further contact and harassment. The judge ordered formal disclosures tied to the settlement routing because the money trail mattered now. Graham's face stayed stiff, but his eyes looked hollow. Celeste's lips trembled, not from sadness, but from rage. Outside the courtroom, the compliance officer from Graham's manufacturing company handed Sloane a card and said, "We'll be in touch." That meant investigations would keep moving. Quiet, official, unstoppable. Within days, the foundation board placed restrictions on spending. Donors stepped back. The local press asked questions. Then national outlets started calling because Family Values leader was suddenly tied to hush settlement and shell vendors. Graham's public future collapsed without anyone needing to scream. He tried one last time to corner me in the parking lot. "Tessa," he said, voice low, "you could have had a peaceful life." I looked at him and felt nothing. "You paid me to disappear," I said, "so I made sure you were the one who couldn't hide." I rested my hand on my belly. Then I walked away, steady and free, carrying the one thing they could never erase.